1.5, which is Jamestown. It was founded in the year 1607. Today's warm-up. Where was England's first attempt to colonize America, and was it successful? The answer is Roanoke Island, North Carolina, and it was not successful. They actually tried 2 different attempts to colonize Roanoke Island, and both of them failed. Why is England determined to try again? So in today's PowerPoint, we're going to talk about Jamestown, which is the 3rd attempt for England to colonize the New World. And they're so determined because land equals power, and France and Spain have already become world powers from colonizing the New World with New France and New Spain, and England wants to join them. England wants to become wealthy like France and Spain. They want power like France and Spain because they're all 3 rivals. So this is a review from last PowerPoint of Roanoke. So England began to set up colonies in North America in the late 1500s. The Roanoke colony is established in 1585, but then abandoned. So that's when the pirate Francis Drake comes to check on the colony to see how they're doing. He finds them starving, so he loads them on his ship and returns them to England. And then a few years later, John White is going to bring over a group of settlers to the New World, back to Roanoke Island, and this is in 1587. Now, once he gets the ships unloaded, gets the colony started, he is going to return to England to try to get 2 things. He's trying to get more supplies and more people to bring with him back to Roanoke. Now, the problem is when he gets back to England, he finds out that England is at war with Spain. And so instead of being able to return with more people and more supplies, the government actually takes his ship and uses it in the war. So John White is not able to return back to Roanoke Island for another 3 years. And when he gets back in 1590, he finds out that the people have mysteriously disappeared, that there's nothing but a ghost town. On a tree is carved the word Croatan, which is the name of a nearby island, but he does not search that island for the lost colony. He does not search for his family that he left behind. He left his wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter, Virginia. He leaves them behind, and when he gets back, he doesn't even search for them. There's a bad storm rolling in, and so he decides that he needs to get back on his boat and sail back to England. So that's why you have the mysteriously disappeared colony of Roanoke. So talking about founding of Jamestown today, 1607, a group of wealthy people formed the Virginia Company of London. So if you're taking notes, you need to write down everything in the bold. They want to permanently settle in North America, and they're looking for 3 things. They're looking for gold and silver. That is to become wealthy, just like they did in New Spain. They want to trade with the Native Americans, just like the French did. They want to trade things like animal fur. And they want to look for a route to the Pacific Ocean. So they're still looking for that shortcut to East Asia that Columbus was not able to find. Now, the group, these wealthy people of the Virginia Company, the wealthy people are going to invest their money to have settlers come over and try to do these 3 things. The wealthy people, are not actually going to leave England. They're going to stay in England. If you're wealthy, if you're, have a good business, if you have a nice house, if you have a good life, there's no reason to leave England. Remember what happened to the last settlers that came to the New World at Roanoke. They disappeared. So it's, only the people that are going to come to the New World are going to be people that have, little money or not a great life in England, and they're hoping to come to the New World and make things better. So we have England's King James I grants the company a charter. Now, a charter is just a piece of paper that basically says that if you find new land that is not already claimed, then you may claim it for your country. So in this case, King James I is going to give this charter to these people coming to Jamestown. And he says that if you find land that is not already claimed by a country, you may claim it for England. So in 1607, we have 100 men that are going to arrive around the Chesapeake Bay area, which is present-day Virginia. They're going to sail up the James River that they name after King James, and they're going to build a fort and a community inside this fort that's going to be known as Jamestown, also named after King James the First. So now it does say 100 men. That's because there were only men on this boat. And, I ask you why? Why just men? That's because survival was tough and men could get the colony started without women and children. So just men come over the first time, and that is so they can do all the hard work of cutting down trees, creating a fort, creating shelter. And then later, the plan is to bring over the wives, the families, the women, the children, to join them in Jamestown. But we will see if the men actually do what they're supposed to do. So this is a picture of the fort here. So notice it is built like the shape of a triangle. So in your notes, I want you to draw a triangle, and then in the middle of it, write the word Jamestown, because it was built in the shape of a triangle. And I say, why do you think they built this fort in the shape of a triangle instead of a square? The answer to that is that there's less sides to defend. Therefore, it is easier to defend. It takes less people to defend that fort. Now, this fort of Jamestown is built right beside the banks, or on the banks of the James River. And the reason for that is the fastest way of transportation at that time was by ship. And so now they're able to bring their ships right up to the fort and bring in more supplies, and they have a quick way of transportation. Now, the downfall of this area of where Jamestown is that it's a riverbed, and it's going to be kind of like a floodplain, and it's going to be very like a marsh. So there's going to be lots of standing water in this area. And with standing water, you get mosquitoes, and mosquitoes carry a disease called malaria. So Jamestown, in the first year, it almost fails. Okay, so just like Roanoke, it almost fails in the very first year. The colonists caught diseases like malaria from mosquitoes. And then the second problem is that the men that got off the boat, their main focus was to find gold. Remember, these are low-income people that, they're looking to come to the New World to have a better life. And so that they've been at sea for the last 4 months on a boat. And the first thing they do, when they get off the boat, is every one of them want to go look for gold. They do not want to build shelters. They do not want to build a fort. They do not want to work. They'd rather go look for gold. So that's their number one priority. And the problem is they don't have a boss there that's telling them what to do. So it's kind of just everyone for themselves. And so, they're going to go out and play and look for gold instead of doing what they're supposed to by, building this fort, building the shelters, and planting gardens and crops to have a long-term source of food. They don't do that. So luckily, the local Native Americans are going to give them food once they run out. They're going to bring food with them, but eventually that will run out. And local Native Americans, Indians, will help them provide them food early on. That's going to help them survive for a little bit. So then the word gets back to England that Jamestown is not doing well. That is struggling. They've run out of food, and so they send over a man by the name of John Smith. So by 1608, only 38 colonists were all that remained. So it started with 100 men. By 1608, a year later, there's only 38 of them. And so John Smith is sent from London, England, to take control. So he makes one important rule that says, those who do not work do not eat. Those who do not work do not eat. So now, if you want to eat, you better work. So instead of just waking up and going to look for gold every day, they're going to have to wake up and do their job, put in their work. That way they get fed that day. And so now they're still able to look for gold in their free time after their jobs are done. But under this new rule, John Smith is really going to, his leadership is really going to be good for Jamestown. And so Jamestown is going to prosper, and things are going to start improving in Jamestown. It's going to start doing very well. But then John Smith is sent back to England. And when he goes back to England, the people of Jamestown, they stop working again, and they're spending their time looking for gold. And so it's going to start a time called the Starving Time, which is exactly what it sounds like. the people of Jamestown are going to start starving again because no one is there to hold them accountable and make sure they're doing what they need to do, like planting crops and hunting for food or fishing for food or gathering supplies. Now, you've probably heard of John Smith before. That's because he is the boyfriend of the Indian named Pocahontas. So after John Smith returns to England, things are looking very bad for Jamestown. We've started the starving time in Jamestown. But then luckily, now the relationship between the Indians and Jamestown has turned sour. And that is because the people of Jamestown, they're digging for gold, which is tearing up the land. And then they're also cutting down trees. And the Indians do not like either of these. The Indians do not have value for gold because it has no currency. They cannot use this gold to buy things. So Indians do not understand the concept of looking for gold and the purpose of it. So they're wondering why are these Europeans digging up our land? Why are they cutting down all the trees? And so they're not really going to help the community of Jamestown anymore. But luckily, Jamestown is saved by tobacco. So James Rolfe is going to introduce this particular breed of tobacco that he found in South America, and he's going to bring it to Jamestown. He's going to plant it near Jamestown, and the soil and the climate are perfect for this tobacco. So this tobacco grows very well in this area, in this climate, and it's going to grow well enough that they can sell it. They can trade it to the Indians, and they can sell it back to Europe, back to England. And so this is going to give Jamestown a way to make money. And now that it has a way of making money, they're able to send more people from England to Jamestown to grow tobacco. And this is helping England create money. So it creates, now that Virginia becomes stable, they are able to create a society with a government, which we'll talk about in a couple of slides. So going back to Pocahontas, so her boyfriend was John Smith in the movie, and he's going to return to England once everything is going good, which initiates the starving time. But then it's John Rolfe that saves the day by bringing in tobacco. And so if you read there, Pocahontas and John Smith, boyfriend and girlfriend, John Smith leaves town. So then Pocahontas ends up marrying the new hero of John Rolfe. Now, the bottom part there, it's kind of disturbing, but it says some records show that Pocahontas was only about 12 years old when she was dating John Smith. John Smith was, in that time, in his mid-20s. So, that's something that Disney does not show you in the movie. So we talked about that government that Virginia is going to create. It's known as the House of Burgesses. So in 1619, Virginia creates a lawmaking body called the House of Burgesses. So the House is a representative democracy. The House marked the start of representative government in North America. So we still have this type of government today. So people will vote for this, has created political parties. So you have Republicans and Democrats today, and they're going to nominate or vote for people to represent them in government. So that's why you have Republicans that vote for people in the Republican Party to vote the way that they would vote. So that's an example of representative government, and we still have it today, even though it was formed back in 1619. So here's a picture. It's a famous picture of the House of Burgesses. Notice it's all men, and it represents representative democracy. Okay, so if you were to see this on the STAR test, you need to instantly think of Virginia and the first representative government in the U.S. So in 1619, we have slaves that come to Virginia. So in 1619, a Dutch ship arrives in Virginia and sells 20 slaves to the colonists in Jamestown. Now, at this time, back in 1619, slaves did not serve for life. They could earn their freedom. So permanent slavery did not establish in Virginia until the late 1600s. So now that only starts with 20 slaves. They are, Africans. Now the Dutch, they were settled around New York City, so they're going to bring down this ship and sell these slaves to Jamestown. But years later, they're going to bring over more and more Africans to be slaves or everywhere around Virginia to work these tobacco fields.